My yellow is it's cut out. It's yellow, not green. It's okay. It's okay. Good morning, y'all. I can't hear myself in my ear. I see the levels. My chat up here. Oh my fucking god. Oh, I feel like shit. I'm hungover. I feel like shit. But one monkey don't stop no show, even if that's my monkey ass. So the show must continue. Oh man, it's been coming out of me this morning. Fuck. Shit, throwing up, spitting, snotting. Oh, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. But I'm here for it today. Um, yeah, it's still weird not hearing myself in my ear, but as long as motherfuckers can hear me, I'm cool. Welcome, guys. I'm talking shit. If it's a Monday morning, you already know the forecast. It's gonna be a shitstorm. I'm your host, Arius Bookman, the Duke of Darkness, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about shadow work. Okay. In fact, I'm gonna devote the entire episode to it. Um, and I'm gonna see how much detail I can get into for it today, because a lot of people say, it's easy to say shadow work. It's fun to say because it sounds spooky, And then you say it, and then Christian don't know what you're talking about, so it sounds real good then, right? Oh, oh, oh. Yeah, I'm sick. I'm not sick. I'm hungover because I'm dumb. Fuck. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about today. I want to get into it. I want to break it down, go all the way through it, because it's easy to say you know what shadow work is because you repeat what someone else said. Oh yeah, I do my research, but your research is just listening to someone else say it, so that you can say it. That's what your research is. Like, how many motherfuckers actually go back to the source material on this stuff? They don't. They listen to Panic say something. They listen to a nigga who listened to Panic say something, and now they say, damn, I heard it twice. You just heard this nigga repeat what this nigga said. So, we're going to get into it today. What the fuck is a shadow? What does shadow work? Why would you do it? How does it work? At the beginning, I'm going to spend my time trying to delineate what it is we're talking about to make sure we have a grasp of the idea of shadow work. In the later parts of the episode, I want to get into the methodology of how to do this, more especially if you're a left-hand path occultist, because that's what I do. Before I go any further with that shit, I'm going to start this intro. Lucy S. Bay, good to see you in the chat this morning, sir. I feel like shit. But we're going to continue the show. Do I look like I feel like shit? I'm assuming I look like I feel like shit. I feel like I look like shit. But it's okay. It's okay. It hurts. It hurts in many ways. Continuing. Shadow work. That's the subject for today. Aaliyah, happy rising, everybody. All right, everyone, happy rising. I'm sorry. Okay, so shadow work. What are we talking about? Today, what I want to do, because I set up the video this morning. Not this morning. Yesterday evening, I finished it up to make sure I had what I want in the video. So, as per usual this season, we're going to go along with it. Because in season 1, I did a segment on shadow work. And still new at making videos, and so I was more long-winded and verbose, less engaging than I could have been, and the video was somewhat long. It was concise, as I am, but it wasn't as effective as it could have been. So I'm gonna spend an entire episode talking about this shit. What's the base says, its aim is to assimilate the parts of the self that a person considers undesirable into the rest of their personality. Yes, Arius, you look terrible. Perfect. Thank you, bro. That's people's general thing is to not assimilate. You can say assimilate. The usual term is integrated into the personality at large. Because people say everything is spiritual because they can't consider it regular. They just say it's spiritual. To what degree is shadow work spiritual? I would say it's more spiritual than a lot of things because people think spiritual is physical world. Oh, look, I'm a telekinesis and this is spiritual. That's not only dumb. It's not spiritual. In order to get to the go within, you have to go in the direction of the psychological world. Because that's the part of you that isn't made of this stuff in the world, but not of it. That's the part of you that's not made of all this stuff. I'm not saying it's the end all be all. You got everything there. It's just all. Here's the answer. No, that's the direction. Oh, he hung over Leo, champion of the people, right? Sounds like it was a good night until it was time for bed. But that's just sitting. Well, it's crazy because I threw up everything I could throw up. This shit's just sitting. All right, I'm fucking around. Let me pull this video out. Okay. I got my desktop audio on. Where's my Final Cut? Here we go. Come on up. Come on up. Oh, my stomach. Oh. You can probably hear that too. Okay, wonderful. Lecture board, window capture. Oof. Oh. Alright, let's try this out. Over the course of time, many spiritual methodologies have a tendency towards flowing into the mainstream of human conception. As such, they become widely held and accepted. Along with this comes a diluting and calcification of those original concepts. One such methodology is what is today known as shadow work. My question today, what is shadow work for a left-hand path occultist? Okay, real smooth. Shadow work. It's become mainstream. So many people are gonna say it. They're gonna recommend it. And it's not to say that because it's mainstream something's wrong with it. Garland, good to see you in the chat. Side EJ, it's good to see you in the chat. Need some Gatorade. I had a hangover all day. I said, "But some Gatorade, maybe." Some folks say you gotta bite the snake that bit you, which means you gotta take a shot of whatever you were drinking. I do not feel like it because I'm surprised I'm keeping coffee and water down. I don't know, bro. I'm good though. I can do this. Watch me do it. Anybody else be like, bro, I gotta go. I can't do the show today. I'm feeling under the weather. Nah, nigga. I'm above the weather. Fuck you talking about. It's a shitstorm in this bitch. You about to get it done. Even if I crash. Alright, so shadow work has become mainstream. Saying it's mainstream isn't to say that particularly something's wrong with it. That's not the statement I'm making. But in becoming mainstream, it has to have been far removed from its roots, from the source of it, okay? So generally you hear people talking about this in a mainstream sense. They're going to be repeating what other people have said as opposed to being someone who went to some of the source material, okay? Like people say the word ego all the time, but they don't go to the source material to comprehend the framework in which that thing exists, okay? Because that's how you're going to understand it. K Prime, yo, what's up? Good to see you in the chat, man. David Goodlow, let's get this work. We here for it, bro. I'm telling you, I can do this. So yeah, you're going to hear a lot of folks talking shadow work. It's easy to say it and it sounds spooky. And because of that, a lot of the ideas have basically calcified. You know, it's far removed from its original standing. Shadow work comes from, it was coined, the term, was coined by Carl Jung, but he's not he does not have a monopoly on the word shadow. Okay. In fact, most people don't even think about the word shadow or what a shadow is. They just try and get to giving you the book definition of, well, this is how it exactly is in the book that I read somewhere. I'm like, nigga, shut up. When nigga wrote that, what does it matter? Like, you have to know what this shit is in order for it to make it make sense, okay? Or you can listen to whoever says whatever, because most people, they're gonna equate it to feeling better about the fact that you're a piece of shit. And it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. Yeah, I want to get into this shit, man. I want to fuck with this shit today. With the general trend of leaving behind traditional religions and cultures, many people are looking for what to be doing and how to articulate that. Along this path and in search of such, there are many practices that people fall into. One such practice is going around the occult community today and is known as shadow work. Now, a basic manner of defining what it is that people mean when they say shadow work is to allow themselves to see parts of themselves that they had deemed unacceptable and now consider those things to be acceptable. Just like any mainstream trend, this definition of shadow work has become considerably diluted, especially in consideration from what was delivered and coined by this practice's originator, Carl Jung. And for a left-hand path occultist, these ideas are in need of much nuance if you are ever to get a firm grasp of the dynamics at play. Okay. Well, pause. Carl. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Hold on. I'm not gonna throw up yet. God, I'm a piece of shit. They hear that ruin your breakfast? What Cheerios? Damn you, Arius. Fruity Loop head ass nigga. That's your boy. I don't know a nigga like that. Piece of shit, man. I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here talking shit. Alright, so like I said, shadow work becomes mainstream. A lot of people are doing it. Well, they're attaching themselves to the word. I'll say that much. Whether or not they're doing it is another discussion. Reach X, good to see you in the chat. Glad y'all can laugh at my bullshit. But here's what I'm adding to this is that people have missed the nuance of what this is in order to be able to give themselves a free badge. Motherfuckers always looking for the perfect manila folder to fit themselves in so they can file themselves away and be like, look at me, I'm unique. And it's motherfuckers try and be unique as opposed to actually finding their uniqueness. Uniqueness is common. Uniqueness is common. Everything is unique. It's common. A lot of what people are calling shadow work, it's basically they're taking the parts of themselves that they had deemed unacceptable and now allowing themselves to make those things acceptable. Once again, they're not doing any nuance, and so it's just everyone has a dark and a light side, and you got to balance the two and embrace it. All right. I'm not gonna say it's wrong, but this is my thing, especially as a left-hand path occultist. What people consider shadow work ain't even close to the work. Mind you, you need to do this stuff to be able to progress, but what niggas are calling shadow work ain't even close. It's baby food. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about what it is. This is a result of going back to the nihilistic narcissism, the getting rid of your metaphysical presuppositions, having your metaphysical presuppositions uprooted. All right, you get rid of religion, you get rid of your old traditions. You say, fuck all that shit, it's fake, it's oppressive, I don't want none of it. But then you go out here and you say, okay, well, I know I can figure out all the world, I can figure out everything. That's hundreds of thousands of years of Homo sapien culture that you throw out the window because you say, no, I can do it all myself right now. Well, you tripping. Well, you tripping. We've been on the backs of giants for decades, for millennia. Fuck you mean? And now you. It's not to say whether or not you should or should not abandon your old religions or traditions. What I'm saying is they served a purpose. There was a utility to them. And if you don't know that utility, you're going to be hard pressed to replicate it anywhere else. Unless, of course, you just, co-sign whatever it is you say and it must be this. So that's what most motherfuckers are doing. Anyways, the idea of what people have had of shadow work right now is there's no nuance to it. All right, it's very one-dimensional, really. But we're gonna get into putting some dimension on it as I get to the later parts of the show. All right, let me get back in here.
Young was not the first person to say the word shadow. However, his use of the term in coining this practice alludes to the nature of a shadow and how that comes about. First and foremost, all things in the light cast a shadow. At the very least, the shadow is to be overcome. There is no sense in which the shadow is something to be defeated or destroyed. In fact, not only is the shadow not simply a singular thing, but the process for integrating it into the personality at large, for some people, can take a lifetime. Now, in conceptualizing the casting of this shadow, think of the light that is shining as the light of your awareness.
I need to hold this point here, okay? Because this is key. It's a lot of times people will look at these different methodologies, especially in occultism, and then they're mystifying the mundane. And they'll try and treat these things like objective things out here, like as if them repeating it is some type of scientific notion. Well, you niggas don't even debate. You niggas won't double check nothing. It's just whatever anybody feels. Nothing about that is science, okay? But this shit actually came from scientists. So I guess you can just jack it and have no nuance and pretend like you know what they're talking about. But it could be so simple, but it's not, because motherfuckers make it complicated trying to spookify it, okay? Everything, first and foremost, everything in the light casts a shadow. Everything in the light casts a shadow. Shadows are born of light. See, most people confuse darkness with shadow. Shadow and darkness and shadow have this little fight. Shadow and light have the little fight. Okay, they got the back and forth. Light can't fuck with darkness. Light can't fuck with darkness. Okay, shadow and light have the issue, but everything in the light is going to cast a shadow. Okay, so when you're talking about shadow work, it's not that there's this thing somewhere. Like these are frameworks for defining reality. They're not definitive. They're not definitive ontological maps. They're frameworks. And if you don't understand what's involved in the framework, you're just going to pick pieces. Like people, the people from Christianity you don't like, who pick parts of the Bible that they want and then say, this is the truth. You niggas are doing the same thing. And you don't know you're doing it because you don't even read the whole text. But you'll take credit for most of the text. I was watching some niggas debating on Instagram. And this young niggas in here, he gonna ask the other dude, hey man, you heard of the book of Enoch? And dude was like, yeah, I read that before. He was like, oh well, I ain't even read it, but stop right there. What you mean? How you gonna invoke that shit, bro? And do you want to know what this nigga's response was? Do you want to know what this nigga's response was? When he was like, nigga, how you gonna invoke the book and you ain't read it? You know what this nigga said? Oh, you gonna love this. You know what this nigga said? I'm all these books. All these books are in me. I ain't gotta read them. If Panic is ever watching, Panic, shit like that is your fault. All these books are me. I am these books. No. What is you? See, that's what we got to get into today, because that's where the nuance gets missed consistently when it comes to spiritual work. What the fuck is you? Niggas will invoke you all day, but they won't question what it is. Nihilistic narcissism. Because if you question what that you is, you start to break down the only thing you got left. And that you don't want to have to do that. That's the whole reason you end up in nihilistic narcissism, because you don't want to actually have to lose everything. You see the idea, oh no, everything's been a lie. I don't know what to do now. All I got is this little lifeboat. And that little lifeboat, little buoy, little floaty thing is that idea of you. And so you don't try and crush it. But you have to, because that's the point. Everything in the light casts a shadow. Everything in the light casts a shadow. The shadow is not a singular thing. Once again, people treat these things objectively. Your body is not a singular thing. It has the appearance of such. When you start dealing with the shadow, especially if you deify it, you're going to get these experiences where it seems like a singular thing. Everything in the light casts a shadow. Now, when I say everything in the light casts a shadow, what is the light? It's the light of your awareness. It's the light of your awareness. See, it doesn't necessarily have to be just a spotlight, okay? Your awareness is what is your capacity to notice, to observe, to take things in, and it's not. Well, first of all, it's not infallible, but second of all, it has limits to it. You can't perceive everything all at once, because you're not really perceiving anything. And so what you're not perceiving helps to give definition to what it is you can perceive, and what you can zone in on and find relevant. All right. Most people don't think about their thinking. They just say what the last person said and do the new thing to feel good. You got to think about your thinking, because if there's nothing that's trapping you besides you, and you're not your body, bro, you got to think about your thinking. What else you got left that you identify with? You got to think about your thinking, and not to judge it and say, okay, this is a good thing and this is what I should think. How does that work? Analyze it. Where's that come from? The shadow work is the basic stuff. It's the shit you do. It's the shit you do at the door, bro. It's not even. I get it. No, I get it. Human is hard enough. It's for most people. That's as far as they're gonna go. They're gonna go human. If you're here doing self-deification, if you're fucking with the left-hand path, and shadow work is where you stopped up, bro, you tripping. There's so much more than this. And you actually have to do that shit. You can't just go in there and try, I'm going to just slay everything that's a shadow and is dead. No, not gonna. First of all, it's not going to work. Second of all, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. We'll get into what you're supposed to be doing, what the nature is, but in general, the personality is not you. The body's not you. The personality is the idea of yourself as the body. That's not you either, though. Just as much as the body's not you, the personality is not you. But the personality has a thing with the shadow. That has to be worked out. Otherwise, you're not going to let go of the personality. That's what's anchoring you to it. These are your agreements where you're anchoring yourself into it. Once again, it's not a singular thing. It's not just one agreement. It's not just one place. It's not just one perspective on it. There's many ways you're doing this. Many ways you're doing it. And that's the issue. That's why you have to keep going back and forth with it. That's why it's not a thing that ever stops. Because it's a shadow is the effect of light. Or rather the absence of light in a particular place. Okay? But what is the light? See, what are we talking about? Oh, the original light. Niggas love to say the original light. Oh my God. I'm not original lighting you. We're going to keep it very personal. The light of your awareness, okay? We're not even going to get too bad into what is you. Because we could just be on the floor rolling around. All right? Light of your awareness. The light of your awareness. Let's continue. The light of your awareness. Remember that. Because that's central here. That's the central. Because what is a shadow? See, motherfuckers so quick to spookify it and make it this thing that's, oh, it's out here and I'm the kind of nigga that know. Like, no, shut your Gnostic ass up, nigga. Like, it's ridiculous. It's not about you being a nigga who's got secret knowledge. It's about having wisdom about what you do and why you do it. Oh. I feel like shit. Continuing.
That light shines upon your conception of yourself. And the side of that conception that the light shines upon is what you would generally identify as yourself. The side of that conception of self that the light does not shine upon is what is known as the shadow. The personality is the sum of those agreements that you honor in defining yourself. The things that you would generally have no issue agreeing to when you describe yourself. The shadow is the sum of those agreements that you dishonor or do not acknowledge in defining yourself.
Bring that back up. Bring that back up. Okay. Oh, you can see the mouse. Beautiful. The light of your awareness, okay? The light of your awareness shining onto your conception of self. Conception of self. Conception of self. Conception of self. Primarily what it is a conception. It is a conception. I give you the non-physical conception of self. Why? Because you have a physical conception of self. See, your conception is never physical, right? It's a conception. It's not a physical thing. There's no atoms. There's not particulate matter. There's nothing like that it's made of. A conception is not a physical thing, okay? But you can have a conception that's based in the idea that what you are is physical. This is called the personality. So your physical conception of self. It's not that the conception is a physical thing. It's that you're conceiving yourself as physical. Physical conception of self. That is your personality. Dawson, good to see you in the chat, sir. Welcome to the show. I feel like shit. Continuing. Your personality is not you. You need it to work the body, to live a regular life out here. You need your personality. You need your shadow. I'm not going to tell you to get rid of either of them. But what I'm saying is the issue of shadow is the issue between the personality and the shadow. That your physical conception of self. And so it's not so much that you want to get out here and say, I'm just self-deified, I'm beyond it, I'm above it. You know, it doesn't even matter to me. You're wrong. And you're lying. Oh. I'm sorry, it's my stomach. Oh. You're lying. That stuff, those emotional attachments, the trauma, the things you don't want to have to fuck with, that shit about your physical life has to be contended with. Why? Because it ends up as shadow. It ends up, not only just because it's a thing in the light of your awareness that's going to cast a shadow, but the shadow is going to become the primary aspect of it, okay? So what are we talking about when we're saying shadow? Remember, these are subjective concepts. These are pieces of a framework. It's not that the shadow is a thing out there somewhere you got to go get. You got to go find. All right? None of the stuff I talk about is some new thing you got to go do. You know, motherfuckers are so quick to find a new thing to go do. Ugh. Ugh. Hey man, I may throw up again. That'd be wonderful. Fucking right. This isn't some new thing you gotta go do. It's about re-examining how you do what it is that you always do. What have you been doing? See, it's easy to pop up on some new information and be like, hey, I'm a god. I never knew that. I never realized I could always do whatever I want to do. This is great. What am I going to go do now? Okay, I understand that. But if you've always been the thing that you just found out you were, what is it you've been using your powers for all this time? What is it you've been creating? What is it you've been manifesting? What is it you've been agreeing to this whole time? That's what you have to do with shadow work. Because you're untethering yourself from this stuff. You have to. Well, once again, left-hand path, Never come back to the physical world. I'm done with reincarnation. Okay, you got another mechanics of that. It's not just a saying it and being really proud. You have to understand the mechanics of what brings motherfuckers back to it. It's not just strong confidence and saying Anunnaki. Mm. Mm. Ugh. See, that light of your awareness, that's generated from the I. The I, not the meat bag's eyeball. I, as in the I from I am. Mm. Oh, God, I feel like shit. Mm. Ultimately, the work is to be able to turn that light of awareness back on itself, because that's where you actually need to be doing the building if you're going to be building anything. Um, but you can't get to a point where you can grasp the light of awareness like that until you learn to grasp these other things. Not only just grasp these other things, but let go of the personality as something for you to identify and know yourself as. That's an anchor. That's holding you back. That's bullshit. And there's plenty to do there. Trust me.
Defining yourself. Also, to be clear, the ego, as defined by Carl Jung, is the center of your conception of self. For those who have no desire to move beyond humanity, they will typically confuse the ego with personal pride. And thus, for people such as this, the conversation on what the ego is usually stopped right there. For the left-hand path occultists, more especially in the framework that I present, there are inevitably 3 aspects to the ego, which I will go over in another segment. The topic of this segment, however, which I plan to stick to, is the shadow.
There we go. There we go. Yes, Aaliyah, I need a sick day. I will not deny it. But I'm going to do this. The ego. I didn't talk about it in the video. Excuse me. Like I was saying, most people don't go back to the framework, to the source from which these things come from. They just repeat what other people say comfortably. I was in my ego. Oh man, this motherfucker got a lot of ego. If I ask you what's the framework the ego comes from, you don't know. You just know that you can say that word that way, and people who say it like that as well are going to understand you. But you missed all the nuance in what any of that stuff is. Like, what's an id? What's a super ego? You know, like, how do these things come together? The motherfuckers will say ego, and they usually confuse that with personal pride. These aren't the same things. Things like pride, the 7 sins, for example, these are the children of the ego. These are not the ego. They're not the ego. Oh, can't you say that the ego because the result of the ego? No. 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 Nuance. I'm sorry. Nuance. You're gonna have to do better than that. Your personal pride is an issue if you have it tailored to the personality. If you got your pride anchored into your personality, that's where it's wrong. Like the 7 sins, okay? A cube has 6 faces. Okay? The 6 faces and then the center point of the cube, making 7. You got an inside and an outside of the cube. Inside of the cube, you're running personality game. Okay? You're running personality game. So when you're dealing with the 7 sins personality level, it's a problem. On the outside of the cube, they're virtues. Same thing, be the same face, it's a virtue, okay? So ego is a complex. You have the original part of the ego that comes in as the am of I am. But then once that's been established, more especially if with the fall to earth, the lowest part of the ego is the shadow. Like if the ego was a cylinder, the shadow would be like the bottom of the cylinder. What else do I want to say about the ego? And you also notice that usually I say the ego. I'm speaking about it in a singular sense. For the most part, you don't experience the ego in that singular sense. Till you get back to turn the light on the light of your awareness back on itself. Then you can go back to seeing the primordial ego. But for the most part, you're going to interact with an ego in an individualized sense, in a dispersed sense. Okay, ego is not something that's fucking you up. It's not. Ego is your sense of self. It is. It is the defining lines that make your sense of self. But by nigga, what is you? You get to choose. So what have you been choosing? How have you been choosing? Oh man, I gotta get out here and start. Shut up. What have you been doing? Don't tell me the new thing you gotta go do. That's your problem. What have you been doing, and how's that work? Niggas. Oh, wow. Ugh. It's whatever though, right? Fuck me. The ego, yeah. It's not your enemy. Most of the shit y'all niggas talking, which you would blame the ego for, that's your shadow. That's literally a shadow. Oh, man, I feel like shit. No, it might help. Maybe I should turn on my fan. God, I feel like shit. Rated up a whole goddamn parade. Turn that fan on. God damn it, man. It does help a little bit. It's not as sweltering. Malik, good to see you in the chat, man. Welcome to the show. Oh, yeah, it's coming out of me. What was I talking about? The ego. So yeah, it's not. So the ego's not some villain who's here to get you, and then cause you to steal some money out your mama's purse so you go gossip bubble gum up the street. That's not ego. And most of the time, y'all motherfuckers can't get through shadow work because you're too busy judging what the shadow does as evil. Not to say whether it's good or bad. It's why does it do with that? Why is it made into this? And it's made into that because you delineate it to the shadow. You're agreeing to the shit, but you don't want to fess up to it. You want to try and find a little loophole that could mean that what you do is still justified. You're trying to justify shit. So you can't see the details of it. You got to get in there and want to see how much of a piece of shit you are. And not just to say it so it's fashionable and cool so you can come back to Arius' live and be like, hey, bro, I found out I'm a piece of shit. Am I in the club yet? No. It's not for that. It's not for that. Ugh. The work is to integrate the shadow. All right, we're gonna show something. God damn, man. Ugh.
Carl Jung was not an admitted occultist, more especially not a left-hand path practitioner. Therefore, the description I give will not match his exactly. However, the two are considerably similar. As always, don't feel compelled to believe me. There is plenty of information that you can go and look up and check for yourself. For now, I'll go ahead and describe this process from a left-hand path perspective. For the left-hand path occultist, shadow work takes the practitioner beyond simply acknowledging to themselves that they do in fact have darker aspects to their personality. This work pushes into and beyond the realm of full integration for both halves of the personality, in an effort to make the use of the personality in animating the body a much more effective endeavor, but more so and to the point, to make the task of untethering the central conception of self from the erroneous identification with both the body and the personality. Said differently, and at the very least, this work makes the statement in the world but not of it more defined and particular for the personal practitioner's experience. Or
in the world but not of it. In the world but not of it. This is key. Your personality is the idea of yourself in the world and of it. It's not to say it's wrong. It's not to say it's bad. It is what it is. Mm. Mm. Stomach. It's not to say that's bad. It is what it is. God damn, I forgot what I was talking about. In the world but not of it. Your non-physical conception of self is in the world but not of it. When you play a video game, you're in the world but not of it. Alright? Your personality is in the world and of it, based on how it is framed, by what it needs to be what it is. Alright, it's not once again, it's not a good or a bad thing or telling you need to go and do something. It's to re-examine what you have, what you've already been doing. In the world but not of it. Okay? The details. What do you mean when you say you, I, me? And not just jump into a new place and repeating areas and say, hey, I'm gonna say my name in the third person, and now I'm like I almost never do that. But I mean, it shows the faults in the English language, so I understand it. But that's not what it's about. It's about examining those agreements. Examining them and then not flexing on Instagram to make sure you give niggas hints that you're doing something. Nah, go in there, fix that shit, amaze yourself, and tell no one. Dude, don't do it for the clout, bro. Shadow work and good human ain't mixing until it does. Yeah, niggas doing shadow work just to get to good human. Well, that ain't it, bro. That ain't it. Ugh. Oh. Oh. This is the key. This is the personality in the world and of it. That is your personality. Your personality is not a physical thing. It's not made of particles. Okay? It's not a physical thing. No particles and forces. Not a physical thing. But it's based in the idea that what you are is physical. Your body is physical. Okay? Because it's a subtle distinction between the body and the personality. And a lot of people get it mixed up. People get all kind of shit mixed up in this. There's a distinction between the body and the personality. Oh. Oh. That burp gave me chills. Oh. There's a distinction between the body and the personality. And simply making the distinction doesn't mean you've done it. You know, it's just it's the first thing you need to be able to see. I suggest the non-physical conception because it's an amazing vantage point to do the work you need to do on personality, which is the shadow work, which is the exploring the inside of this shit, exploring how this shit is connected, how you've been agreeing to it, the nature of your predicament, and how you're continuing to agree to it. The nature of your predicament and how you're continuing to agree to it. Okay?
Or at least their experience of the physical world and their agreement to it. Like I said, untethering. Like my analogy of the light shining upon the conception of self, the goal is to make the rogue parts of the shadow less effective and ultimately smaller and smaller. This is similar to the types of shadows cast when the sun is directly above the earth at high noon.
Boom. Boom. Right here. This is what you're doing with shadow work. Shadow work showed me that Aaliyah just wants the easiest human life. That's what most motherfuckers want. They want this shit to make it an easy human life, and that ain't what this is, man. Hey, get ready to end up in the gutter, drunk and dead. I'm telling you, bro, who knows? This shit's already set the way it is. But yeah, this is what you do with the shadow. This is part of how you integrate it, okay? Right now, the light of your awareness is looking at yourself from a skewed angle. Okay? A skewed angle where you see the best things that you want to see and don't have to see the things you don't want to see. What does that do? You bring that light in to a subject at an angle, you're going to get a larger shadow. Period. But how do you make the shadow as small as you can? Because if this is what makes it large, what makes it small? You put that light directly above it, high noon. All right, where the light is encompassing more, as much as the conception as can possibly be. Okay, so the more of your conception of yourself that you have in the light, the smaller the shadow is. It's contracted. It's not to say you get rid of the shadow. You know, this is part of how you integrate it. You examine it, because all that stuff is shadowy because it's not examined. But once you integrate it all in, there's less need for a shadow, so there's going to be less of it. Oh. Oh. Not gonna lie, I feel like shit. Oh, I feel like shit. I'm an idiot. But yeah, you want it to be a smaller shadow. And that's how you do it. You change the angle that the light of the awareness is looking at the thing. You change how you look at your conception of self. Like, bro, you're not even Brandon, and you lying to yourself about Brandon. Like, you got to be joking.
The shadow is almost non-existent, not from being rejected or ignored, but from having more of the conception of self within the light of your awareness. This is generally termed integration of the shadow. In terms of psychology, within a human framework, the work of Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud have become so widespread and accepted that most of what they said now is considered self-evident by many. However, when taking these ideas beyond the realm of human framing, shadow work is a necessity, but it is only the prep work before the cooking of the meal has actually begun. The vigor and willingness with which you undertake the task of shadow work will set the pace and the tone for whether or not you as an initiate can actually surmount the conception of self as human. Let it always be remembered that human is the lie.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, no, it's human that's the issue. It's human. Not Homo sapien. Not Homo sapien. Human. The idea that we overlay on top of the physical world, on top of the actual reality, the narrative you get yourself caught up in and tied up in, knotted up in, like you're caught in a net and tangled up. You get tangled up in this narrative of humanity as opposed to living lucid, examining the world as it is. It's quite natural not to do that, you know. But if you want to get past it, you got to go through the mud. Oh my God. Oh. Damn it. Oh. Oh. Yeah, this ain't even gonna work. I'm about to die right now. Oh. Mm. Mm. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I'm about to call this one quits today, man. Fuck. I'm out. Ugh. Ugh. If I feel better, I'll just jump back on a live. And no fuckers can watch it later. Oh my God. I am an idiot. I am an idiot. Since we understand, I would hope so. Thank you. Real talk, real feel better. I need some milk. Yeah, you talking about, bro? I need some real milk. No almond milk. I don't want milk that identifies as milk. I'm gonna need real milk, man. All right, bro. I'm about to bounce.